Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. And I cannot believe how fast 3 weeks have flown by. We are already at our final session of Jumpstart. Over the past few weeks, you've built the foundation for your voice transition. And I hope you've been able to see just how much is possible for you. Now, before we dive in, I want to take a moment to check in with you. How has this past week been for you? Tell me first, I want to know how often did you get a chance to practice? Let me know in the chat. Was it all 7 days? Did you get five in? Did you get one in? Did you get none in? It's okay, whatever it is. Almost every day. It's been amazing. Awesome, Leo. Five, four, great. Remember, we said five was perfect because there were five pillars in 7 days, so five is awesome. Willow, first couple weeks every day. This week was a mess because you flew. That's totally fine. It's hard when your routine gets interrupted. Um, so that's completely normal. Wasn't able to do the whole routine. That's okay too. It's all information. Okay. Now I want to know which pillar was the hardest for you to practice and which one was the easiest. Pitch was the hardest one or the easiest? Easiest. That's exciting. Resonance gave you trouble, always gave you trouble. Were you able to hear the difference between like the bright E and the dark ooh? Like if I do that, can you hear the difference? E, ooh. Because that's like step one. If you've got that, that's still a step forward on resonance. I know it's a tricky one. Easiest was tilt since you talk with a lot of enthusiasm for fun. Yeah, I've got like a lot of Nicole always says I've never met anybody with so much tilt in their voice as Rosalie. So um for me the challenge when I was transitioning my voice was learning how to turn tilt off and still like keep an affirming sound because when I turned tilt off, I had a tendency to darken my voice and it fell out of an affirming range. Whereas now I can, turn tilt off. I can still talk. I still sound like me. It's not tilty. So, I guess just sharing about my experience too. I can relate. Weight and resonance. Yeah, I imagine weight and resonance are probably the hard ones. Um, okay. Well, thank you all for sharing. No matter where you're at with your practice, what matters most is that you've started. The hardest part of this journey is not the exercises. It's showing up for yourself again and again, even when it feels challenging. And every single one of you have done that. One thing we've learned from working with thousands of people in their voice transition is that the challenges don't stop after the first few weeks of training. They shift. Right now, you're focused on learning new techniques, but in a month, the roadblocks might look different. Maybe it's about making time to practice or staying motivated or figuring out how to actually use your changing voice in your real life. So, this session, we are talking about what next steps could look like. Let's take a moment. We'll do another round of future tripping. So, I want you to imagine yourself a month into voice training. What are we tackling together? What do you see distracting you from practicing? Or what are you worried will get in the way of progress? Let me know. Try to make yourself sound too much like somebody else. Yeah. You remember in uh I think it's session two where we talked about like how it's important how you train your voice. And in a lot of like traditional settings, there's like this idea of sound, say what I say, sound how I sound, where you're copying somebody else's voice and then you lose the you part of it. So that's definitely like a very real struggle. Not having the results checked if you're doing it on your own. Are you, yeah, being able to gauge your progress, figure out if you have bad habits. Absolutely. Um, Worried about folks judging you. Absolutely. Every single person who has transitioned their voice or has tried to do trans voice has gone through that same thing. And I think that's probably a common thread through almost if not all of these that I'm seeing here, right? They're all relatable. None of us are alone on this. And it makes sense because changing your voice isn't just about learning the exercises. It's about having time to practice, energy to stay consistent, access to the right support when you need it. And from everything I'm hearing, the biggest concerns aren't actually whether you can change your voice. You've all proven that you can make progress. The real challenges are making time to practice, staying motivated, and figuring out how to afford structured support. So, let's talk about those pieces. Since so many of you are thinking about what comes next after Jumpstart, let's talk about what it actually takes to keep making progress and how we help people navigate those challenges, whether it's inside Undead Voice Lab or out there on your own. One of the biggest worries I hear from people is how long is it going to take? And the truth is, voice transition isn't instant, but it doesn't have to take forever either. The full Undead Voice Lab curriculum, for instance, takes about 6 months to complete, with the biggest challenges, or sorry, the biggest changes usually happening in the first 4 months if you stay consistent. But life happens, right? On an average, most people take closer to 9 months, which is why we give lifetime access to Undead Voice Lab. There's no deadline, there's no pressure to rush. You go at your own pace, and then we support you the whole way. So let's be real, the world is exhausting right now. Yeah. And voice work can often feel like another thing on top of a list that's already overwhelming, especially for those of us with executive dysfunction. Yeah. Um, and that's why UVL isn't just a course, it's a structured support system that makes sure that you never have to figure things out alone. That is also why we are offering a $1,000 tuition grant to everybody here, all of our Plume jump starters, to make it easier to keep going. We know that having a structured program, expert coaching, and a community that actually gets it makes all the difference. And we want to make sure that you can access it. So that $1,000 credit means tuition for lifetime membership is cut in half. Ooh, ow. After that, we wanted to make sure that UVL was as accessible as possible. So we have set up multiple options. You can do a one-time payment of $999, or at checkout, you can also explore a variety of different monthly payment options and choose the one that works best for your budget. I also would be remiss not to mention that if you have an HSA or FSA available to you, that's a health savings account or flexible spending account through like your employer, we have 100% success rate with Undead Voice Lab being covered by that. So if you have that available to you, this counts. Okay, and you have 2 full weeks to use your tuition credit. If you're if continuing your voice journey inside Undead Voice Lab feels like the right next step. And I want to let you know that there's no pressure here, right? Just support if and when you're ready. So, if you're thinking, all right, that sounds great, but what does it actually look like in action? I'm going to show you. I'm going to take you behind the scenes so you can see what it actually looks like to be supported in your voice transition every step of the way, even when things get hard. The structure, the support, the tools, it's all designed to help you keep making progress no matter what roadblocks come up. So, I'm going to walk you through this and then you can make the best decision for your voice training journey. I'm going to start by saying Undead Voice Lab it's not just a course, right? It's a self-paced, deeply supported membership program designed to help you transition your physical voice in a way that actually aligns with who you are. And it's built around three core phases of transformation. We call them assess, master, and embody. Let me show you what that means. So, stage one, assess. We start by figuring out where you're starting from, what your baseline voice is like, what vocal habits you've picked up, and whether there are any vocal health concerns that we should address. You'll do a comprehensive self-assessment in the onboarding course. It's not just about tracking pitch, it's about getting a full picture of your instrument so that we can watch your progress together. The second stage is master. You will learn to fully master the 5 pillars of voice. Those are what we talked about in session 2, right? So vocal weight, vocal tilt, resonance, pitch, and dynamics. You got an overview of these in Jumpstart, but inside Undead Voice Lab, we take them one at a time. We go deep and we build full control. You can think of it kind of like learning each string of the guitar before you play a song, right? And then the course library walks you through it step by step with your voice coach helping you figure out which courses and which tracks are right for your specific goals. Stage 3 is embody, right? So once you've built the control, it's time to make it yours. The sustain course recreates real life situations and those kind of involuntary sounds like laughing, crying, sneezing, coughing, whispering, emotions like conflict and joy. And it teaches you how to inhabit your affirming voice in every moment. So it doesn't just sound good, it sounds like you. And it's effortless, right? This is the moment when your voice stops becoming something that you're working on and starts becoming something that just is. Okay, that's the big picture. Thank you for bearing with me. All right, let's zoom in and look at what's actually inside Undead Voice Lab. So I'm going to share my screen here. And you let me know if you can see the big letters in yellow saying library. Yes? Awesome. Okay, so this is Undead Voice Lab. It has 3 main parts: courses, coaching, and community. So let's start with the courses. This is where your voice skills are all built. You'll notice that the courses are organized around the 5 core pillars of voice. So we've got vocal weight, vocal tilt, resonance, we've got bright and dark, pitch, etc. And like I said, some of these are split into 2 tracks, like bright versus dark resonance or pitch up versus pitch down, so we can match your training to your unique goals. The course library walks you through each one step by step, and you will always have a coach helping you figure out what's next based on your voice, your goals, and your results. So let's take a look at where it actually begins. This is the onboarding course where you will learn like the tech basics, how to post, how to download the app, how to use the platform. But more importantly, as you see here, it's where we do our goal setting. And then it's also where we help you build your practice routine and do your voice assessment, right? This assessment lets us give you custom guidance, and it also gives you a starting point to track your progress throughout the program so that you can tell where you're making a difference, right? We will track your progress in the background as well and check in on those results at different milestones and then coach you to make sure that you're staying on track. Okay, so that's onboarding. Let's take a look at one of the pillar courses. So this one is bright resonance, but they all look, they all kind of follow a similar structure. Each course is broken into weekly units, right? And each unit includes a short video lesson, a downloadable guide with notes and exercises, a practice plan for the week, and a prompt for what kind of clip to send your coach for feedback so that you are never stuck wondering, am I doing this right? You are never left guessing. We show you exactly what to focus on and how to practice it. So, like I said before, if you go straight through the courses without taking a break, it takes 6 months to complete the full sequence. But we also know that everybody's journey looks a little different, and most members take closer to 9 months, and it's not because it's hard, it's because life happens, right? Work gets busy, you travel, um, you know, tragic moments, things happen. That's why Undead Voice Lab is a lifetime membership. There's no deadline, no pressure to finish by a certain time. You can take breaks and come back when you're ready. And the tools, the support, the community, the coaches, everything will still be here for you whenever you are ready. Okay? So let's talk about how that actually fits into your day. The great news is, just like with last week's practice, we don't ask you to carve out an hour a day. Instead, we teach you to practice in short 1 to 2 minute bursts tied to routines that you already do. If you've ever heard of habit stacking, right? And we aim for about 10 minutes total across your day. So you might do your vocal warm up while your coffee brews. You might do a practice burst in the shower for a minute. And then maybe a couple minutes after brushing your teeth, or one of my favorites, while washing your hands. That kind of micro practice, short, frequent, and attached to habits, is the most effective and research backed way to create lasting change in your voice. It makes your progress feel more doable and actually sustainable, even on the super busy days. Okay, let's talk about the other most exciting part of Undead Voice Lab, the community. Okay, this should look a little familiar. No, y'all are on the Plume platform. You haven't seen this one. Okay, so this is the Undead Voice Lab community. This is your space to connect with other people transitioning their voices across all ages, backgrounds, and identities. So I go here. I make a little calendar every month with our like monthly events. I tried to make it cute for Pride, but as you can see, we have daily peer practice groups. These are casual drop-in sessions where members warm up together, try out skills, and just connect with others who are on the same journey. We also have a program called Vocal Duets. It's a one-on-one buddy matching program where we help you find a practice partner to help you stay motivated and accountable. I actually lead those that program. So if you do join Undead Voice Lab and come to duets, you can see my face. We've also got monthly workshops and live events. Those are chances to go deeper on specific voice topics and share space with others in the program. Sometimes they're on things like vocal fry or helping tell the difference between pitch and resonance, things that folks struggle with. And other times we have guest workshops with like health professionals, with Broadway singing coaches, with voice actors. Lots of fun. And then we also have community chat threads, much like other social media. You can share your big wins, talk about transition related things, get your ask questions, get answers. We've got broken down channels for different voice schools so you can find folks who are working along a similar path as you, right? So whether you want to be part of the group or if you are just a lurker and you want to hang out and absorb, there are thousands of people from all over the world that you can connect with. Okay, now let's talk about the coaching because that's where Undead Voice Lab really flips the traditional voice training model on its head. So most people don't actually need to meet with a coach to be lectured at once a week. What they actually need is support while they're practicing because that's when the questions, the frustrations, the breakthroughs really happen. And if you're practicing every day, you should have access to your coach every day too. And that's what you get in Undead Voice Lab. Coaching happens in 3 different ways, and you'll probably find yourself using different ones at different times, just depending on where you are in your journey. So the first method is one-on-one direct coaching. You can direct message your coach at any time with a voice clip, a question, or a quick update, and you'll get personalized feedback typically within a day or two. So if you're practicing and something feels off, you don't have to wait for a live call. You can just message your coach and get help when you actually need it. And you'll be supported by a small team of coaches, including our founder, Nicole, who you'll meet here very shortly, and other trans coaches who have gone through the program themselves. And you have access to all of them. So you can work with whoever fits you best or work with multiple coaches depending on what you need. Second, We have weekly group coaching calls, also known as office hours. We actually had 2 sessions today. um, these are live drop-in sessions where you can ask questions, get real-time feedback, and also see what other members are working on too. And if you can't make it live, all the recordings are posted so you can catch up anytime. And then third, like I mentioned before, we have those monthly workshops. They are live deep dives into specific voice topics. You can get practical strategies for working through things that might be slowing you down and have time to actually try them out. Again, typically with a coach. My favorite one that we just did was on D&D character voices. So people came in with their character concepts, and then one of our coaches helped them craft like a voice recipe for what that character could sound like. And then you got to try it out. It was so fun. Okay, that's what it looks like inside Undead Voice Lab, how the courses, coaching, and community all work together to support your voice journey. Your tuition grant is available for the next 2 weeks, so you have time to make a decision about whether continuing with Undead Voice Lab feels like the right next step for you. Okay, let me see if there are any questions. Anything come up for you? Let's see, is it phone friendly or better to do on the computer? We do have an app, so you can do everything from the phone, if that is what works best for you. Great question. Okay, and Nicole is here, so everybody give them a warm
Oh my
welcome.
God, don't clap. You don't even know if I'm nice.
I'm clapping.
I might be really mean. Hi everybody. I'm so excited to be back with Plume. Hi Rye.
Oh, good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
For a reminder of who Nicole is, because y'all haven't seen them before. Nicole is the founder of Undead Voice. We're the ones that we've been communicating together to bring this whole Jumpstart Your Voice Transition 3-week workshop series to Plume in the first place. We started working together, I think, sometime last year. And so just really excited to be bringing you on again. And yeah, I'll give you the space to do your thing and introduce yourself and all the
Yes.
things.
Okay, cool. As Rye said, I am the founder of Undead Voice. I'm also a speech pathologist, though I seldom claim that anymore because it didn't do a whole bunch to bring me here. But it gives me a good background. I've been doing trans voice work for about 12 years, and this is like our, I don't even know, second year working with Plume in your community. So the goal of me being here today is to answer any voice questions that you have. So anything that came up while you were in Jumpstart, while you've been practicing on your own, anything that comes to mind, I'm happy to I'm happy to give you any advice, feedback, any kind of tips. A lot of people submitted questions, so I'm happy to go through those. But of course, anything that pops into your brain, please throw it in the chat. We'll prioritize looking in the chat today. And then if you submitted a question, even if we answer it today, you'll still get an email from me. Was there a workbook or recording I can review from last week? Yes, of course. Somebody will tell you where that is in the Plume platform. There's a recording of the
Yeah,
session as well as the workbook.
yeah, I can send that in the chat.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Melanie. This sunroof, the sunroom is hot during the day, but beautiful and great right now. I've only lived here 3 days, so enjoying it a little bit so far. Okay, cool. If there's anything that you wanted to ask specifically, please go ahead and, as I mentioned, throw it in the chat. If not, I'm just going to start working through all of the questions that you all submitted, which are great, and there's quite a few of them. I should be scrolling down. There we go. You can come visit. We have a bed, or we can just get you a blanket. You can sleep out here with my cat. She would love a friend.
I'm down for that. Just
A
the
lot.
blanket, that's all I need.
Yeah, well, I'm in San Francisco now, so you can come. You're in Oakland. We're right by each other. Okay, cool. Let me go through some of these questions. Before we do that, psych, I'm curious how I know you probably already answered this, but what was the last week like? Which pillar would you say was the most fun or the easiest for you? Vocal weight, vocal tilt, resonance, pitch, or dynamics? Resonance was easiest. I love that. Pitch and tilt were pretty easy. Cool. Tilt. Weight. Yes, I like this because you get to see, well, one, how different everybody's answers are, and it also gives you a little window into like what is your, like, what are you a natural at? Pitch is rough, pitch is okay. Yeah. Dynamics is fun. Yes, Lisa. Yeah, dynamics is really fun, especially if you have a lot of dynamic like movement in your voice already. It feels really natural. Pitch and tilt were easier. Weight and resonance were hard. Yep. Mostly been doing resonance. Need to refresh my memory on the other pillars. I'm sure we'll do a little bit of that today. Okay, cool. So you kind of answered the next question, which was which one is the hardest. So thank you for the insight. And I'm going to answer the questions in the chat first. Okay, it says, Blair, you asked, so a thing I've noticed while practicing pitch and resonance is that I automatically pitch myself up nasally. Is there any way to prevent this? Yes, let me tell you why it happens first. So anytime you're trying to move your voice up, whether that is a brighter resonance or a higher pitch, it is just natural that the whole like vocal tract, your whole structure is going to move upwards, right? So unfortunately, when you move your larynx up, there's a whole bunch of stuff that gets in the way. So from here to here, if you're brightening your resonance and you're naturally just kind of pulling everything up and making the vocal tract smaller, there's a lot of structures that are on top of your vocal folds. You have your false vocal folds, which are two little flaps of tissue that come in. You have the vocal folds themselves. You have your epiglottis, which is like it looks like a leaf and it closes your airway to protect it when you swallow. You have the base of your tongue, you have a hyoid bone, and that is just in like 1 inch of space here, plus a whole bunch of ligaments and muscles and tissue. So unfortunately, whenever you brighten your voice or you raise your pitch, you're naturally raising up the bottom of the vocal tract, and all of that, the room all of a sudden is too small for all of the furniture, and the sound wants to escape. It's uncomfortable. And so it will naturally open a door to your nose. So your soft palate will fall down. Well, it'll open. Fall down sounds like it's an accident. It'll open, and then sound starts to escape the nose. So what we want to do instead is train your voice that even whenever things get a little tight in the room, it still goes out the front door, your mouth. There's a specific exercise that we do for this. It's called the Nini Didi exercise, which has you train what it feels like to have sound, air, noise go out your nose, and then while it's bright, and then have it go out your mouth instead. So we're like kind of tuning into what it feels like to to be a little bit more nasal when you're speaking. So if I go brighter, Monday, Tuesday, sometimes when I go brighter, it goes nasal. Then there's a full exercise that we do to get you dee. So here it's out of my mouth, but it's still bright. It lost the nasal quality, but it's still a brighter sound. That said, you don't want to do that until you have control over the brightness levels. So it's absolutely something that you can control. I've told you why it happens, but I also want to tell you that where it goes in the sequence is after vocal weight, vocal tilt, and in the middle of resonance work. I hope that's a satisfying answer. It's completely common. It happens to most everybody. When you brighten your voice, it goes nasal, and that makes sense because it's going up, and then we want to close the door to the nose so that it only comes out of the mouth but stays bright. Okay, let me see. It's hard to adjust my mouth width to the deeper sound. I want to come out, wait, hold on. It's hard to adjust my mouth width to the deeper sound that I want to come out of my mouth, if that makes sense. I feel like it's just coming off as forcing a deep voice. Ezra, if you're down, you want to, I mean, anybody can come off mute. I would much rather chat with humans than a chat, but like also no pressure. I think I don't know if I completely understand. I can try to read it again, or you can give me a little more clarity. So it's hard to adjust my mouth width to the deeper sound, which means more of a purse. I want to come out of my mouth, if that makes sense. It's a deeper sound that I want to come out of my mouth. I feel like I just come off as forcing a deep voice. Clarify for me, Ezra, if you're talking about voice work in general or specifically the resonance exercise. Yeah, come off mute. Let's chat.
I feel like I feel like it's kind of like a social awkward maybe response, like or maybe like fear response.
Okay.
I feel like the way I articulate what I'm saying, like with like my lips,
Mm,
sometimes I'm not. Maybe it is like the shy response or nervous response, but I feel like I will like muffle myself, and then it just sounds like a forced voice, not like a natural voice.
yeah, yeah. So you're saying whenever you're feeling nervous or shy that you're kind of not moving your mouth as much. It's like it's all kind of staying kind of small and closed.
Correct, correct. And then that just sounds forced. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it sounds unnatural, right? Because there's not a lot of movement. That said, the more you're kind of moving and opening your mouth, especially if we're thinking about the lips going wide, it's going to be counteractive or counterintuitive to what you want, which is a darker voice. So what we would do for you, Ezra, instead is teach you to drop your jaw so that the space is still bigger, but you're not widening this way. So don't focus so much on here, like movement here with your mouth. Focus on more movement this direction. So instead of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're going to keep the lips neutral, but drop the jaw a little bit. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So even if you end up feeling a little bit nervous or embarrassed, you can have, and it makes you have very little movement in your mouth, as long as you're getting some up and down motion with your jaw, it's going to darken it.
I tried. I just tried, and it makes like a night and day difference. So thank you.
Yay! We're done. Bye, everyone. You can apply it the opposite direction as well, right? So let's say that you are finding it difficult to maintain like a more of a spread with your lips. Pay attention to what's happening with your jaw. If you're like talking really big and you're dropping it a lot, it's going to sound darker. If you kind of keep it a little bit more neutral and then use your lips more to pronounce or to articulate Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, instead of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Can you hear the second one's darker? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Up, down, up, down. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Spread, 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 spread. I've never done this like this, so hopefully hopefully it's making sense. You had that issue at times also. Yeah, I think a lot of times what Ezra was pointing out is that our bodies have natural responses to feeling uncomfortable or anxious when we talk. And the instinct and the inclination typically is to kind of curl in or cave in on yourselves. And that happens with our bodies and our voices and all the parts of our voice. And so taking up a little bit more space doesn't have to look like being loud and gregarious. It can just look like making a minor adjustment, either more spread or more drop with the jaw. Cool. I love the coming off mute piece too. Hearing voices. Okay, let me look at my list and again, throw them in the chat if they come up. Okay, let's see. This is a good question, but I think we need to warm up a little bit more first. Do you have any ADHD friendly tips to help build voice practice routines? I love this question. Over 50% of people in our program are some sort of neurospicy. And so if you are, you probably know that a lot of the typical like calendars and schedulers and planners don't work and they're frustrating. When it comes to voice training specifically, what you do is, well, what works best is to use a checklist over a calendar. So instead of being like, I need to practice 5 days this week, you just have a checklist of things you want to accomplish. Those checklists should have multiple options and categories. For example, let's say you want to practice resonance today. We want to have like 3 different options of exercises you could do for a warm-up, 3 different options of exercises you could do for resonance, and then 3 different options of exercises that you could do for like stretching the muscles. And the goal of that day is just to do 1 in each category. So it's like create a checklist instead of a calendar. And the goal isn't to complete the entire checklist. It's just to do 1 thing in each area. That way, if you have multiple options, you can choose the one that feels the most comfortable or that you're most into. And the goal is to aim for reps, not time. For example, you might like do an exercise 3 times instead of practice for 10 minutes, right? So focusing on how many reps you're doing instead of how much time you're going to sit down and practice it frees our brains up, because you can do those reps while you're walking, while you're taking a poop, whatever in the world. Like you don't have to sit down for 10 minutes. And especially for me, if I think about my day, and even if it's just 10 minutes, I start to get anxious of where am I going to fit that? Or should I miss the window I was going to put it in, right? But if it's just 3 reps, it's much easier. So keeping the routine super simple and repeatable. And then I'm sure Rosalie covered this when talking about practice last week, but always try to attach the reps to a routine you already do, like brushing your teeth, or like I just mentioned, going poop, whatever it is you do daily. Not everybody does. Sorry, I should have given a disclaimer. I'm not as sweet as Rosalie. I cuss a little bit more, and I'm a little bit more unhinged at times. But I'm asking you all to be yourselves, so I just I have the audacity to do the same. Okay, so like pairing it with something that you're already doing daily, like brushing your teeth or making coffee. You can also record. Okay, well, we'll pause there. I have like a whole laundry list of tips for this. We have a whole structure. The entire program is designed around people who are struggling with executive functioning to stay on track. So trust me, we got you covered there. But those are like the quick tips. Checklist over calendars, reps instead of time. And make it simple, repeatable, and attached to a daily routine. Okay, the next, I have one over here. Is it possible for sleep talking voice to match voice when awake? I sleep talk often, recorded it a few times, and it sounds like what I started with. Definitely don't want my partner to hear it every time I sleep. For sure, it happens. Have you ever heard, like, when you start speaking a second language, you know that you're fluent when you start dreaming in it? Has anyone ever heard that before? Yeah, like if you're learning another language, one of the markers of you being fluent in that language or just really proficient is that you start dreaming in that language. Same Z. I mean, there's obviously not a lot of research on this, but anecdotally, we've helped a few thousand people at this point. And your sleep talking voice is going to default to whichever one is the most habitual. Like, what is the habit? We call it like your reflexive voice. Like, it's a reflex. If somebody like walks by and elbows you on accident, what voice comes out when you yell at them? If your dog is running into the street, what voice? These are all yelling examples. Whatever voice comes out naturally as a reflex when you're not thinking at all is the one that's going to also come out for you whenever you're sleep talking, because it's the habit. Now, when it comes to that process, like what does that look like? When you start voice training, whatever your natal voice or the voice that just happens naturally when you speak now, we call that your home base. As you start to learn new techniques and exercises and create a whole new sound, it starts to build. And then as it matures, it gets a little bit more effective, a little bit more of a habit, and this becomes your new home base. This one doesn't disappear. You just have to choose to switch into it, right? So you never lose access to whatever your voice sounded like before, but it'll become a choice that you have to consciously make to use that sound. So what we're looking for with sleep talking is that the new sound you're creating is now your new home base. This is adjacent to, nobody asked this, but hey, like your inner voice, what it sounds like. I mean, I think it's only 50% of people have an inner voice, but those of us who do, yeah, I know, shocking. But those of us who do have very mixed experiences with when that voice starts to shift to one that's affirming. Wonderful if it happens before your speaking voice does, because it can kind of be your own model. Sometimes frustrating when it's not keeping up with your voice transition, but I've not met a single person yet whose inner voice doesn't switch eventually too. Cool. Oh, wait, Lisa, you literally asked this question. I've heard about the inner monologue, and that language means that you have a deeper understanding of it. Yeah, deeper understanding. I mean, it's not the exact question, but you said inner monologue, so I'm just pushing them together. Okay, Melanie said, when raising my pitch and trying for a more femme sounding tone, it still feels forced and sounds like a femme masked masculine voice. How is achieving a brighter, more femme tone achieved through Voice Lab? If the main thing you're focusing on is pitch, that is exactly why. So pitch is like a helper, but not a main component of what societally codes a voice as sounding more femme. That's going to be resonance. What happens though, let's say you're starting here, this is your pitch, this is your resonance. If you raise your pitch and you haven't focused as much, or you don't have as much control yet on resonance, what happens as that pitch starts to raise and the resonance maybe is moving too, but a little bit slower, is that anytime there's a gap between your pitch and your resonance balance, an imbalance there, we start to hear that as like unnatural sounding. Meaning it just kind of like turns the ear. It's that uncanny valley. It's that it just sounds unbalanced. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say I start with a lower pitch and a darker resonance. So E. So here I have a darker resonance, but I haven't changed my pitch at all. I'm going to bring the pitch down. 1, 2, 3. So here I have a lower pitch and a darker resonance together, right? From here, I'm going to raise my pitch up, but not my resonance. 1, 2, 3. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Can you hear that my pitch is higher? But I still have kind of a dark, hollow sound on top of it. This is a more extreme version, right? It's a really big gap between the two. If I push it even further, like even 4, 5, 6, now my gumdrop buttons. Oh no! Then we get into character voices. Here I have a very high pitch and a dark resonance. And so it sounds really unnatural. Let me bring it back down. 5, 6, 5, 4. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So here I still have a higher pitch, but a darker resonance. If I bring my resonance up to match, E. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Now I have a higher pitch and a brighter resonance. They're more in balance, and it sounds more like a voice you would expect to hear in the world. So it's all about reducing that gap, right? If you're shifting pitch and not focusing on resonance, we start to create that unnatural sound. Vice versa, if you shift resonance and not pitch, which like nobody does, because resonance is much more tricky to wrap your hands around than pitch is. Pitch is the thing that we're most familiar with. It's what we change when we sing. It's what we're most used to mimicking in other people's voices. But if you were to brighten your resonance and not move your pitch, you'll also have an unnatural sound. Same thing if we go down, right? So let's say we're at high. So 1, 2, 3, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. This is a bit of a higher pitch. And then let me brighten my resonance. E. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So here I'm at like a brighter resonance and a higher pitch level. I'm going to lower my pitch and not move my resonance. This is what happens when a adult voice is exposed to testosterone, right? Because the pitch will drop, but the resonance won't. And we can talk about that in a moment. It feels so weird to just have a conversation in this voice right now. Okay, so E, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Can you hear there's like a little buzzy quality to my voice? It sounds like a little pinched or even kind of nasally, just a little bit unnatural. So here my pitch is dropped, but I still have a bright resonance on top of it. If I bring it down, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they are much more in balance. You don't have the buzzy quality goes away, and it doesn't sound as like head turny. So that's all like kind of demonstrating on. Thank you. I'll be here for the rest of my life, doing this for the rest of my life. That's kind of the demonstrating a bit of what happens with the misbalance. And so, Melanie, I would imagine that might be what's happening, but we've talked pitch and resonance are only 2 of the 5 pillars, right? And so it could be that you've successfully raised your pitch and your resonance is bright, but you have no tilt in your voice. And so it just sounds a little, unnatural because of that. And we call this like the like caregiver. There's not like, the way I used to say it is just so gross now. So I'm trying not to say mom in church, because who wants to be in church? Never mind. Okay.
Oh, the mom's mad at the supermarket?
Mom at the supermarket. Thank you. I knew there was
welcome.
There was a better one that we'd come up with. It's like, if you don't stop, there's going to be consequences when we get in the car. If you don't stop, there's going to be, hi, my name's Nicole. It's nice to meet you. Right? So here I have a brighter pitch and I have a I have a higher pitch and a brighter resonance, but I don't really have tilt on in my voice. If I add a little bit of tilt, it's going to sound a little bit more natural. Anyway, there's 5 pillars. If you don't change all of them, it can start to feel like something's a little bit off. Okay, well explained. Wonderful. Thank you so much. For my next trick. Okay, I get stuck in the buzzing sound sometimes, even though it's a little deep. Absolutely. Should we have a little side quest chat about the effects of testosterone on the voice? Yay. Okay, cool. So if you have testosterone exposure after you've completed natal puberty or adolescent puberty, right? Testosterone changes the size of the muscles of your body. When it comes to the voice, only one of the pillars are affected by muscle or made up of muscles, and that is your pitch, your vocal folds, right? So the vocal folds, the little things that vibrate, have a few different layers, and what the biggest layer is made of muscle. And so when you take testosterone, those muscles get bigger, and so the vocal folds get bigger. I'm going to use an analogy of furniture in a room again, but in a little bit of a different way. So think of your vocal tract, the size of the tube that you speak out of, as the room, and think of the vocal folds as the furniture. When you go through natal, adolescent, puberty, those things develop in a way that's really balanced. The furniture is the right size for the room. Cool. Now, if you, into adulthood, take testosterone, the room doesn't change because it's not made out of muscle. It's made out of cartilage, and it's not moving. Like, it's not going to, by being exposed to testosterone, it's not going to get any bigger or smaller. But the furniture will. So that sofa starts to swell. And now all of a sudden, there's a big ass sofa in a tiny little room, and it's gonna feel a little unbalanced. You may experience like a sensation that something's stuck in your throat when you swallow. Like people report a lot of different sensations, but it comes from having a big sofa in a small room. Whenever you have that big sofa in a small room, it creates that buzzy quality, and it sounds unbalanced, like we were just demonstrating. So what we want to do is, like, testosterone is not going to change the size of the room, but you can structurally shift it, right? I can make the room longer. So here I've dropped my larynx down. I haven't changed anything else. My pitch, everything is the exact same. I've dropped my larynx down, and then so I've made the room longer. Now I'm going to make it wider. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Again, same exact pitch I was speaking in. All I've done here is make the room bigger. So you can train the room to get, this is like, I hope the analogy is still hitting. Okay, I'm deep in it now, so we're not backing up. Okay, good. You can train the room to be bigger, but you have to do that through exercise. It doesn't happen just from testosterone exposure or hormones, right? So the hormones will make the furniture bigger, but it won't make the room bigger. So you have to make the room bigger so it's balanced. Testosterone, like I mentioned, shifts just the one pillar. It's just giving you bigger vocal folds. So now we're going to switch to a different analogy. It gives you a new instrument, right? A bigger instrument that can play deeper pitches. But if you don't know how to play the instrument, you're not going to be able to access the deeper pitches. So testosterone on its own will give you an instrument that can play lower notes. If you don't train yourself on how to play those notes, you'll never get the most out of that instrument. So testosterone gives you access to lower pitch. Voice training lets you actually get to it. Okay, furniture analogy works. Good. Sometimes it works really well. Sometimes I get a little lost in it. Okay, Leander, you said it feels painful to drop the larynx. This is a really good sign. It means that we're going a little bit too far and you're over recruiting effort. It's if you're solely focusing on dropping the larynx and it's feeling painful, that tells me that you have some tension in the strap muscles that lay on top of your larynx. So if we talk about lowering the larynx, the way that we lower the larynx, let me move this so you can see my throat a little. The way that we lower the larynx, can you see my move down? The way it lowers is by the engagement of muscles that insert into your collarbones, your shoulders, and your shoulder blades. So there's these muscles that originate here, they grab the larynx, and then you engage them and they pull it down. E. These muscles can get sore and tired over time. And if you're if you're focusing solely on lowering the larynx to darken your resonance, they're doing too much work. There's 3 levers for moving resonance, whether it's going brighter or darker. The height of the larynx, so what we're talking about now, the width of the throat, and the placement of your tongue. If you're only using one of them, it's going to get really freaking tired. You want to use all 3 of them together. And so if you're only focusing on the larynx height, then it's going to get a little bit tight and tired. Also, if you are doing resonance work, you should in tandem be doing a lot of larynx massage at the same time. There's a whole routine for it. It would be like going to work out every day and like doing the max reps and then never having time to recover, or never like rubbing out sore muscles, right? Because everything that controls your voice that we're talking about manipulating and learning to control is muscles. So anyway, treat them like the muscles of the rest of your body. All right, there's not another one in here. I'm doing good on time. I've only been here for 30 minutes. We're doing good. Okay. That always runs away with me too. I'm going to let Rosalie do that one. Okay. I like this question. How do I check my own placement in practice? Okay, so I'm going to answer this from like a DIY method. So if you're doing your own voice practice, kind of like solo, right? If you're doing DIY style voice training and you don't have like a coach to check in with to give you feedback, or even any friends that are transitioning their voice at the same time to ask for like a quick check, the most effective way to check your placement is like the playback and contrast method. So we're going to unpack that. The playback and contrast method is where you focus on whatever skill or exercise that you're practicing. You're going to record yourself saying a single phrase in 2 different placements. So for example, let's say you're working on resonance and you want to choose the phrase of the days of the week. So you're going to do the days of the week in a full lip spread. E, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then you're going to do it in the purse. E, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then you're going to play back the recording. And you're going to ask yourself, which one sounds lighter and brighter? I mean, this is a very obvious example, so that one should be pretty straightforward. I'm giving you a really obvious one, but you apply this to everything. So which one sounds lighter or brighter? And then which one sounds deeper or darker or more grounded? And being able to like have 2 options that you're then differentiating between, right? Playback and then contrasting them helps you feel and hear the difference more clearly. You can do this with any skill that you're trying to build. The best trainer for your ear is going to be contrast. So if you're like, oh shit, I've been training my voice, I've been working on a higher pitch, doesn't sound that different than my normal voice. I don't know if I'm actually doing this right. Like, I think I'm making progress. It sounds a little different, but I'm not sure. Always go to the opposite. Unless it really truly triggers dysphoria, then like, fuck me, do what works best for you. Don't go that far. Don't go that far. Which brings me to another point that often comes up whenever I talk about recording voices. A lot of people are uncomfortable, especially if you have voice dysphoria, recording and listening to yourself. Anybody? Not the funnest thing to do, right? So it can be really shitty to hear that that's a really integrated or like a really integral part of voice training. If you are somebody who's uncomfortable listening to your own recording, I want to give you full agency to record it and then not listen to it for a long time. Like you can record that sample, listen to it 5 minutes later, 3 hours later, 3 weeks later, it does not matter. Just take some time, create some space between when you're recording it and when you're listening back. If you're really uncomfortable hearing your own voice, even when you're recording it, like throw on some noise canceling headphones or some loud music and record yourself that way. It's a little trickier because you might be a little distracted. But if you take some time between recording and listening it back, it's super helpful, especially if you're like not in a great headspace or if listening to your own voice creates a ton of dysphoria. That said, eventually, if you are DIYing your voice transition and you have nobody else to listen to it and no feedback, eventually you are going to need to listen to your own recordings. to analyze what's happening and make more progress. It's always uncomfortable at the beginning. What I can tell you without a doubt, that as you build skill, the confidence increases and it's not as uncomfortable to listen to your voice. It'll start being more euphoria inducing. And just know that, like, even if you're not yet at a place where you can record it, because there are people who feel like it's just not accessible for me, it's just not going to happen right now. Still practice. Don't give up. Don't ghost voice practice, because just doing the exercises, even if you're not recording and listening to them back, does impact your voice. Because again, we're working out muscles, and you can't work out muscles and expect them not to change. They're going to get stronger. What listening back does is helps you be more strategic, or choose more about the sound that's coming out. Leo, you said, I actually did that today to see if I heard a difference. And I was like, whoa, amazing. It was a little uncomfortable, but not as much as it used to be before I started T in these classes. Phenomenal. That's great, right? Yay. I mean, there's a lot of embarrassment and fear that people tend to experience with voice dysphoria. It's like learning anything new. It's like being given a violin for the first time and asked to go on a stage and play it in front of a crowd of 1,000 people. It's very uncomfortable. But if you're given time to learn, master, and then get on that stage, it feels a lot more comfortable. We're all just learning new skills. This one just happens to be with an instrument that you are forced to play most of the time each day. But there's also a lot of beauty and joy and euphoria and identity uncovering that happens through voice. It's a very powerful tool to affirm your identity and really kind of unlock a lot of, I don't know a word for it other than joy. Yeah. Okay, I'll get off my emotional soapbox. Okay. My wife told me there was a difference. I thought she was just hyping me up to make me feel better. Yeah. Okay. I am going to talk a little bit more about recording, but just to give you some context. So when you record your voice and listen back to it, it won't sound like you. It won't sound like the voice that you hear in your head. And there's a few reasons for that. When you record your voice, it's being processed through microphones. You can have phenomenal, amazing microphones, and it's never going to sound exactly like it does to other people in real life. Most microphones have some sort of compression on them, which means they take all of the beautiful sound waves and they compress the top and the bottom. That's why you hear yourself on an answering machine, which is like or a voicemail, which is a really shitty microphone. I mean, Apple doesn't have it that good yet. It's not like they're putting thousands and thousands of dollars worth of microphones in your phones. Anyway, you can hear yourself on a recording, listen back and be like, oh, that's not what I think I sound like. So that's one piece, is that anytime you're using technology to analyze your voice, it's always going to be compressed or delete some of the information. So it won't always sound the same. Some of what it deletes is above where a human ear can hear, so it doesn't matter. But there is a portion at the top and bottom that you will be able to hear a difference. The second thing is something called bone conduction. I like the word. It really fits with the undead voice vibe. So whenever you speak, the sound goes out of your mouth and then it goes into your ears. That's called air conduction, meaning the sound is being conducted through the air. It goes out into the air and into your ear. And then it travels into your middle ear, your inner ear, and then it stimulates your auditory nerve, which sends information to your brain. But also what's happening when you speak is bone conduction. So if you make sound, E, and you feel your throat, E, what do you feel? Vibration. Nicole, I knew you'd get it. Beautiful name. Okay, vibration. That vibration vibrates not just here in the throat, but also the bones of your face, specifically your mandible, your jaw. And whenever the vibration of the vocal folds vibrates the bones of your face, those bones go all the way to your middle ear. And so it's a second stimulation of your auditory nerve, which means when you talk, you have two inputs. When somebody else talks, it just goes through your ear. That second input, the bone one, always sounds richer and deeper than just having one input. So your voice in your head will never sound like, the voice in your head will always sound different than the voice anybody else hears or a microphone records. Thank you. We're related. Every Nicole is related. Everybody with an N voice. Everybody who has ever said the word Nicole is related. We're all a family. Okay, did I miss any in here? Boo, 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 boo. Oh, shit. You're going to use your HSA. I love that. One of us. Okay. You know a thing or two about microphones and how they make, yep, exactly, an Xbox 360 lobby. All right, let me see another question in here. Okay. I keep running out of breath when saying the days of the week as practice. Any tips to avoid vocal fry and control breathing? I'm trying my best to keep up with vocal training, but having a hard time with sticking to routine. Any tips? Yeah, so first we want to see what is your lung support right now? What is like your breath support to your voice? So I would actually have you stop practicing and do a quick test. So what you're going to do is you're going to just take a nice breath in, and then you're going to hold out the sounds E for as long as you can at an easy, comfortable, relaxed pitch. Not too quiet. We don't want E, not too loud. E, easy, relaxed, comfortable, volume and pitch. And what you're going to do is time how long you can hold it. The average adult can hold that sound anywhere from like 15 plus seconds, right? If you're under 10 seconds, that's when we want to start looking at how your breath is supporting your voice. And I would guess that you're maybe closer, a little bit under 10 seconds if you're feeling like it's a struggle to say the days of the week without running out of breath. I'm not talking about lung capacity. We're not sending you to a respiratory therapist. You're not having to do like those, I don't know if you've ever been in the hospital, they give you those like things you have to breathe through and keep the little smiley face in the range, inspiratory spirometer. We're not changing your lung capacity. Your lungs are fine, unless they're not, and that's a whole other thing. But for most of us, our lungs are fine. What we're affecting and what you're experiencing here is just coordination. So when you speak, there's three different systems. There's your breath, there's the phonation, so the vibration of your vocal folds, and then there's the resonance. So there's three different subsystems. You don't have to know or memorize any of this. The main point to take away is that they need to be in balance. And if one of them is working too hard, the others try to compensate. And so what I would suspect for you is that you might have a little tension that is making it a lot harder for your breath to work efficiently. In Undead Voice Lab, the first course that you go through is called Foundations. We have you do an assessment where we remeasure these things. So I'll be looking at how many seconds it takes for you to hold out the E, the ah sound, an S to Z. There's like a bunch of measurements and baseline data we gather. And then I analyze it to see if there's any red flags or yellow flags or anything that we need to work on before you move forward into voice work. For a lot of people, they'll have like less than 10 seconds that they can hold out that sound. It doesn't mean that we stop. It doesn't mean that you do any sort of breathing exercises. That's not it at all. It just means that we move forward and find tension and try to dissolve it. And then as you work your way through curriculum, you end up balancing those systems, and we're reevaluating those measurements consistently throughout the program. And so we'll start to see those numbers go up, and then it should feel easier for you. Okay. Eva, you said, what can I do about coughing or sneezing? I can't help being loud or deep. Even sometimes just clearing my throat can be dysphoric. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to talk about the brain for a moment. Everybody's favorite topic. Definitely mine. Your voice, different parts of the sounds that you make with your body are controlled with different parts of your brain. So your speaking voice is controlled in the left hemisphere of your brain. Your singing voice is controlled in the right hemisphere of your brain. And things that are reflexive, like coughing and sneezing, are actually controlled in the back of your brain. So the changes that you make to one of these areas doesn't automatically apply to the others. So you might be a singer and be like, I have wonderful control over my voice. I can hit all of these ranges. I feel really confident. But when it comes to my speaking voice, it is not translating. Or vice versa. You can do a whole bunch of work on your speaking voice and then you still sing like shit. So the reason is because your left and right hemisphere don't talk to each other. So if you're trying to transfer skills from one area to the other, you have to actually do exercises to do that. When it comes to what we call reflexive sounds, again, I used this term earlier, coughing, sneezing, laughing, crying. These are all things we do with our body that don't activate the language or speech center of our left hemisphere, which means all the changes you're doing in your speaking voice don't automatically apply to these reflexive body sounds. So there's a whole lesson, we have a whole course in one of the courses that you go through of how you can use the changes you've made in your speaking voice to change the sound of things like a cough or a laugh. Quick tips is like, think about the shape of your mouth and think about the sound. So for, you said coughing and sneezing. So like a typical sneeze, achoo, is really deep, right? If you want to make it brighter, you switch it to achee. The last sound is going to be what people remember. So it can be really freaking deep and achee. The last sound is what they're going to hear. And vice versa. If you want to darken it, achoo, like really round those lips. All of that change is happening just because my lip shape. Sneeze hack. Karate. I was in karate at the YMCA as a kid. I know they made us say sounds. I don't remember too much. I was really bad, so I had to go in the dead cockroach position a lot. Okay, and then sneezing or coughing. Coughing's hard. Coughing is always going to sound deep. It's always going to sound kind of guttural, especially because it's coming from such a deep place. This is really going to rely on the mouth shape too. So you can open, close is going to make a little bit more of a difference. You still want stuff like air to come out, right? If you were trying to brighten your voice, what you never want to do is close off the space. So coughing into your elbow doesn't close it because it can, unfortunately, all of the sound can still go up and down. Coughing into your hands is going to darken the sound. It's just like really quick tips. There's like a whole sequence of things that you practice. But just like filler words, right? Filler words is another thing that isn't changed by the work you do on your speaking voice, because filler words aren't language. They're just sounds that we put in, even if it's like, they're not attached to your speaking voice because there's no content to them. And so that's another thing, just like coughing, laughing, sneezing, crying, that you have to focus on. Well, let's leave crying out of it. I think we should all just be able to cry as humans without worrying about what it sounds like. But filler words are another thing that you have to actually focus on separate. Taekwondo. Team Taekwondo. Sneezing hacks. How are we doing? Do you feel like this is good amount of information? Too much happening? You want a whole bunch more? It's definitely a fire hose. You don't have to remember any of it. It's being recorded, right? Yeah, okay. Awesome. You can always email me if you're like, what's that shit you said about sneezing? Oh, thank you. The goal is always to make these really complex concepts approachable and tickle everybody's brains. So some people need all of the science and the how is this working and what is the anatomy, what is the physics. That's me. If you don't tell it to me, I don't understand. I don't care what exercise you give me. It's not landing. Other people are like, stop saying terms, just give me the exercise, right? And so the goal always is to like toe that line as a coach and figure out what each person needs. This is a rarity where there's, I don't know how many people are in here, but a whole bunch of people in one space. So I try to give both sides of the coin. So if anything that we're saying or I'm saying feels overwhelming, let it go right over your head, and just stick with what sticks for you. You love too much info. Amazing. Yeah, gotta have the 5 Qs to understand everything. Yep. Or the 5 Qs: who, what, where, when, why. Yeah, for sure. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna give more info. Here's one. Is it possible to make my voice sound more gender neutral? For sure. Yep. There's people who have goals of just like an agendered or a non-gendered voice. And the way that is possible is I'm going to do a little bit of theory. So earmuffs if you're one of those people who don't like information. When it comes to voice training, there's a few different types of approaches. There's an imitation approach, which you probably heard about in session 1, where a coach just gives you a sound and you try to mimic it. And then there's what we do, which is called like the isolation or the physical only approach. So the difference being, one takes your voice and moves it in a direction as a whole. It's either higher, lower, left, right, in Australia, wherever, right? So you're moving your entire voice around. The pitch goes up, the resonance goes up, the tilt turns on, the dynamics go to mountains, and it's all happening. Or it all goes down, it all goes lower. The pitch goes lower, the resonance goes darker, the tilt turns off, you go to thick folds, and you don't really have a lot of movement. That's what we talk about when we say moving the voice as a whole. What we do is more of an isolation approach where you don't move all 5 pillars at once. You learn to control them one by one. So in Jumpstart, because the goal of this is to get you familiar with what it takes to train your voice, to help you in your further journey, we give you a little bit of all 5, but that is not how you should train your voice. What you want to do is each individual pillar one at a time, and you want to do them in the sequence. This is obviously seems very prescriptive, but it's my this is my prescription for you. You want to do them in the order in which they were taught. So you want to do vocal weight first, and you want to get it to maybe 80% proficient, and then you move on to vocal tilt, because the next one is going to help you get that extra 20, right? Then you go to 80% for vocal tilt, and then you go to resonance, then you go to pitch, then you go to dynamics. And then there's another course, but that's about putting them all together. So even though you were given a beginner exercise in all 5, you should not sit and just do beginner exercises in all 5. If you work on all 5 pillars at the same time, you're going to attach them to one another, right? Do, Australia voice. Instead, if you do them one at a time, what you're actually creating is more of a soundboard of different knobs and sliders, and each one has a name, right? Thin folds, thick folds, vocal tilt on, vocal tilt off, brightness level 1, 2, 3, darkness level 1, 2, 3, pitch, like all of these different controls. And then what you do with that beautiful soundboard you've created is then you get to adjust them. So you start moving all of the knobs and sliders, and you try on a bunch of different combinations until you find the combination, the setting that aligns with your unique identity. That is taking a physical, like, isolation approach. We've isolated every area so that you have true control. You're mastering your instrument. You're not imitating somebody else's genre or style. And so that's really, 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 really important. Now I'm like, what is the question that I'm answering? Okay, so the gender neutral tone, to do that, you have to be able to adjust, because it's not like you can't move the whole thing just to the middle. A gender neutral recipe to a voice typically sounds like thick folds, medium tilt, usually around like a level 1 of bright or dark, whichever direction is the opposite of where you are now. Same with pitch. If you have a very high voice, we're going to move you to a level 1 of low pitch, or vice versa. And then dynamically, we keep you in, I don't want to get too in the weeds here, but there's a specific recipe for something that societally is coded as gender neutral, that to achieve it, you need to have control over all of the sliders in your voice. Okay, I'm going to pause here. If you submitted a question and if it wasn't answered, you're going to get an email from me. If you submitted a question and it was answered, you're still going to get an email from me, because I'm not going to remember all of the questions that I answered. So you're going to get probably the same thing that I said, with a lot more detail. I'm kidding. I would send you an email even if I remembered the whole conversation, because we don't all have time to go back and listen to an hour-and-a-half long recording. And sometimes people process better when they can see it in writing and keep it forever in their little hearts and in their email inboxes. But thank you all for giving me the opportunity to be part of your voice journey, even if this is the only time we ever interact or you ever hear me lecture towards you. I can promise that this is the last time that you'll ever hear me do this. this, like you sitting and listening as I just spew information at you. I do not love lectures. Anytime I am working with somebody, it's always a conversation. So the reason we have to do this, though, is, again, a lot of people, fire hose method. We want you to get great information so you can make the best choices for what your future of your own voice journey looks like. If that's with us, amazing. I would love to be part of your voice journey. You'll never get rid of me. I'll be in your inbox all day, every day. If it's not with us and there's another direction you want to head, or you end up doing DIY style, I am absolutely happy to be a resource for you still. If you're like, what do you think of this exercise? Or, hey, this coach said this thing, is it bullshit? It's really hard to navigate the online world or the in real life world of voice training. So feel free to use me as a resource. Rosalie just threw my email in the chat. It's nicole@undeadvoice.com. I'm always here for you. Okay. Have a good rest of your Wednesday. And I'll let Rosalie wrap it up. Thank you, Rye, for all the things, for allowing me to come. Again, deluge of information to your people. And I'm really excited that you all were able to participate in Jumpstart. We're running it again a few times this year. So if you have any friends that you think would enjoy Jumpstart, let them know.
Of course, I'm so happy for you to be here, Nicole. Just super quick, I'm sure you're gonna be doing a closing, which I can also do a second close after you finish, Rosalie. But I'm just gonna send the link to the discount code page. It is in the chat. I'll let Rosalie take it off.
All right. Well, as we wrap up here,
Hold
I
on,
just want
I'm
to.
sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you. Somebody asked me.
Oh,
to
you need a banger. Yeah.
recommendation. I just put it in the chat. It's Remy Wolf, Disco Man. That's my banger. Okay, I'll leave now. Sorry, Ridley, go do your thing.
Well, now, as we wrap up, I just want to say thank you all so much for showing up, for your time, for your energy, everything that you've put into Jumpstart. And I want you to know that no matter where you go from here, you have already taken the hardest step, which is showing up and starting. So even if things still feel uncertain, I want you to trust that you are on the right path. Okay, good. So now you've seen what Undead Voice Lab actually looks like behind the scenes. You've got access to your $1,000 tuition grant if you do want to keep going with us. And you've also had a chance to get your voice questions answered by an expert, the expert. And wherever you go from here, I really hope that this helped you feel more confident about what's possible from here. Thank you all so much for trusting me, for trusting Undead Voice with your voice journey, and thank you, Plume, so much for having us.